Literally just set up. So here, that's it right there. Check, check. Okay, there we go. That's definitely on now.
Okay.
All right, I can see it. Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, so it's been an interesting week, I guess, since we've been.
It's only Wednesday.
And it's only Wednesday. There's actually a lot going on. And we were going to just maybe talk about a little bit about, we don't want to begin because actually it's kind of hot right now. There's a lot of stuff. So, one thing I guess we could talk about the meeting. There was a meeting on the 18th that we didn't really address all that much.
Right.
And then there was a meeting on the 30th. Was there anything on either one of those that you want? Here's the 18th one, just so you can kind of see it. I'll go back. And again, this isn't the updated one because what we found out, and I guess I need to apologize because we pointed out that there were a lot of revisions on the agendas that were being posted. So we would get an agenda that was supposed to be posted on Thursday for Monday, and then Friday there'd be an update, Sunday there'd be an update,
yeah.
Monday there'd be like an update at noon time, an update at 2, an update at like 4:55, I did point that out, and so now I think what you'll find is it's very hard to get an agenda on the website. It's hard to find it. And
Right.
The town through the select board issued a statement saying that basically the only official posting is that right outside of the annex door. And so what that means effectively is that, you know, the one that we subscribe to is not going to be necessarily updated on the website. That's the way I get it.
Right.
That if they needed to, you know, it's 5:55 before 6 o'clock meeting, they were going to update it and put it right out front of the annex, and that would be the official posting. So like the one I'm looking at right now, if you can see, sorry about your face there. Right, yeah, right there. It may not be accurate, quite honestly, because in fact, I don't think it is accurate. So.
Right.
So anyhow, it makes it a little bit hard to discuss what goes on at a meeting unless you're there, or we have videotape, and then we kind of peruse the videotape. And so I have to say I didn't do that with this particular meeting, but I wanted to point it out that what we should do is I think we should create a bylaw that says, yes, okay, the annex can be an official posting, because I think everybody likes to try to chew a piece of paper stapled to a tree, kind of to tell everybody that that's what's going on. So it gets put into that little box right outside the door. But the other thing that we could do if we put together a bylaw is to say that the electronic posting is also a primary posting.
Right.
And then that way, what you get in your email, even if it's revised, the revision should be resent the way I should hope it would be anyways.
So what you're suggesting is that somebody, maybe us, work on writing. So
a bylaw.
So basically the posting at a meeting per the open meeting law requires the town to have an official location where all notices go.
Right.
In the past, we have always, when we were chair, prior to us, I believe, they were still using the internet, and even though our sites were, or our posting was always officially the annex or the town hall. You know, I think we did have to change it when we moved away from the town hall. But that was the official location. But we always had stuff updated all the time on the web. And it was never a problem to redo our official posting because it was just common practice.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is if you didn't get it in on that posting for that agenda, we just didn't put it on it unless
Right.
it absolutely needed to be on it. And then we made it very clear that's what was going on.
Right. Revisions before 2 years ago were very, very rare.
Right. Right.
And, you know, so now it's going to appear rare again because they don't list how many revisions. They don't do any revisions on the web. It's
Right.
only
You'd almost have to do a
records request
for
all revised agendas.
the latest agendas of every day. Again, nobody wants to do that.
No.
But,
No,
I want
so-
to do it, but I'm not going to do it. It's just too
Yeah.
much. It's just too much.
So
Okay.
I would say moving forward, the January 18th as written, you know, the only thing that I would add is, or talk about on this one is the open meeting violations. And as usual, this chairman, you know, has a very great way of discussing these open meeting violations by just saying they're not a violation, you know,
Right.
and he moves on. These were 2 violations. I believe these were the 2 that are listed were from the building committee,
Right.
and you know it was about. I believe if I do you remember exactly what they were?
I want to say they're talking about the legality of disbanding it
Right.
and that vote. Something about that vote.
Yeah. So the vote on and I think we said it when we were on after that meeting.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, but they basically said the existing committee shall continue doing whatever. And then they came back and said, you're disbanded. It didn't, you know, we didn't say existing. And I mean,
Right.
just
Right.
wordsmithing and revisionist history. And you say something enough times and somehow this board thinks it becomes the truth.
Right. I think what happened was they were talking about the building committee, and they were talking about revising the building committee, and then it got to disbanding the old building committee, and then allowing some of them if they wanted to be on a new committee, and who's going to do the new committee. And quite honestly, the discussions of it got confounded and honestly got a little bit mixed up. Even when one of the select members was at a building committee meeting, there was a kind of a mixed message. And I think the open meeting violation was a way for them to get clarification that they didn't think that it was done appropriately or that they even had the legal right to do so.
Right. And looking at the minutes also reflect that it was done incorrectly.
Right.
So again, just the same circus, different day.
It'd be nice if they just explain it and just said, okay, here, this is the mix-up. This is exactly what happened in our eyes. We could see how it could be misconstrued in their eyes, and going forward, this is what we want. If they just said that, and then that was going to be their response, then we would all know what the response is going to be. I don't know what the second one was. The other.
I think they were both kind of complementary to each other.
All right. So what we could maybe do is go, because I have a little bit of a comment on, actually, I'll make it on this one, on the 30th, all right? And so I made it a little bit bigger here, and I believe this is the 30th here. So first off, that was the appointing of the chief, was it
Yes.
not?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had our meeting our show a couple days later, and we weren't sure if he was officially appointed or not. And in fact, he was.
Yep, you can see it on the video. They did post a video of it that the interim chief, Beaudry, was actually made the chief, and they had members of the select committee, the search committee, there, and everybody said, yeah, that was the decision, a unanimous decision.
The search committee gave the select board 2 finalists.
Yes.
And it was a unanimous choice on who the top candidate was, but it was still, you know, they didn't make the decision, and you know, from my looking at it, I think that committee may have wanted the select board to be more involved in the final selection.
Yeah, and so they did. And if anybody has a chance to watch, the video is up. It's posted. I was a little bit annoyed that how they did it. They just basically said, "Oh, congratulations, Chief," and then they didn't even know, was it 1 year or 3 years? Oh, well, I guess it's 3 years. You know what I mean? It just wasn't organized. There wasn't, in my eyes, enough pomp and circumstance and congratulations that would normally be associated with somebody being selected to the chief position. There should be something, even if it's, they made it a special thing. We're going to have your family come in. We're going to have the Boy Scouts come in. We're going to have, a flag. We're going to have the whole police department that can come in, and even the fire. I mean, the whole safety complex should be represented. And it was you got it, shake your hand, couple of claps and a nod, and shaking hands with whatever people were there, which are just a couple people that are supportive of the board, and not necessarily supportive of police departments in general. But anyways, I'll let that go. So yeah, I mean, I think I thought it was a missed opportunity to issue the support and the praise and the respect that position should have enlisted from them.
I thought it was very sad that it didn't appear that he knew that he was going to become chief that day, and he didn't have his family there. None of the police officers were there.
I mean, he should have got pinned. He should have had, even if he had Chief Cusk come in and ask him, who do you want to be pinned? Who do you want to be pinned by? And that would have been it would have been a gracious thing to ask, and then just allow that to happen.
I have heard that they're planning it for the future, and I don't know when, and I think it's a little bit anticlimactic at this point.
Right. Yeah, it is a little bit. It's kind of annoying.
And I would say, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I'm going to say that part of that may be because of Brimfield Matters. And
what?
And oh yeah.
What do you mean?
Because we were talking about it at our last meeting.
Yeah, we were.
And this is not the first time that we've said something here.
Right.
And the knee-jerk reaction has happened at the next meeting.
Right. Right. 100%.
Actually, even going to Sheriff Kochi coming out last night.
Right.
As soon as we posted it on Facebook, one of the select board members, then said, "Oh, here's the flyer, by the way."
Right.
First time we got to see that flyer.
Right.
5 minutes after, we broke it.
Right.
Seems a little.
Broke the news.
We broke the news.
It's awesome.
Stick with us.
But it is true. I mean, honestly, a lot of people, when they actually asked for a raise of hands, who was planning on, how long did they know about it, and at least half a dozen knew.
Oh yeah.
I would say less than an hour before the meeting.
Right.
And that was, I don't know how many people were there that weren't part of his contingent. There were probably a dozen. So half of the people.
I believe there were 13.
Yeah. Well, see, that was pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not too bad. But it was interesting. I think we should get back to that meeting in a minute. I do want to go down to a little bit below on that. There's a circle, because I think they added something on that date that was on a revision that I didn't see, and I only saw because I watched the video, and I would encourage everybody to watch the video. The last thing on there was an open meeting law violation, and I'm going to be straight up. It was me. What it pertained to was the debacle that happened on September 12th. And then the subsequent debacle that was associated with that happened on October 11th.
What happened then?
Well, let me tell you. So October 12th, there was an executive session to discuss the ambulance contract. Very clear cut. The only topic on the agenda should have been that. Not a big deal, right? Well, that happened, and then it segued into the membership of the board, and I'm not going to name names right now, I don't think, but membership of the board calling out that they weren't getting a lot of the information, and that there was a communication breakdown, and then it kind of went into a lot of different discussions from what I understand. I wasn't there, nobody was there. It was an executive session. I don't know exactly who was still present, but what ended up happening was most of the attention was then put on to the administrative assistant. So right then and there, it should have been stopped. Adjourn the meeting, everybody leave, this is done, we're going to do this another time.
Which is what the chairperson said he did.
Yeah, well,
not the adjourn.
Okay, so what happened was, we were waiting because you never know what's going to happen in a meeting. For some reason, we were still talking. We were outside in the parking lot when and I don't remember why, because there wasn't a regular meeting, was there? Or what? Later on after that,
no, we were talking.
Yeah, there was a group of us anyhow, the administrative assistant came out, and we were like, "Oh, wait, what? What are you doing?" And she's like, "I had to leave, whatever." She was very emotional. So that happened, and then what we found out was that they were talking about her, and the chair of the.
And how did we find that out?
Well, she told us, for one thing, as she was walking by,
and the minutes were released very quickly after.
Yeah, to their credit, they did release the minutes.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if that was a ploy or if it was to their credit. I'm not. We can argue that a couple different ways, maybe at another time. Sorry. So what my problem was is that they took the opportunity of that executive session to continue a discussion about an employee of the town. And if you remember, October 11th meeting was kind of a continuation of that, to give her an executive session that she then wished to have an open session. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I'm going to go back to the first one, because my first complaint was that they shouldn't have been discussing her in the first place. Their argument was they didn't. Sort of. If you watch the video of that meeting, January 30th, what the vice chair says is, there was no deliberation. There was no deliberation. We didn't deliberate. There was no, and I think she said it maybe 3 or 4 times. And then, so there was no breach of the open meeting violation. The chair then said there was no breach because they asked the person about whom the discussion was kind of
focused,
to leave. And I think the quote was, "We invited the person to leave." And well, okay, that doesn't.
She shouldn't be subjected to.
Right. So she could avoid hearing the discussion, is basically what he said. In fact, that is exactly, I think, what he said. Well, there shouldn't have been a discussion. That was my point. Asking her to leave and then continuing to talk about her, just saving her by the saving grace that you said, "Oh, she leaves, she doesn't have to hear this." It's still a violation of the open meeting law, because that executive session wasn't meant to be used for that. And they denied it.
And we've discussed executive sessions before, but real quick, executive sessions are a part of the open meeting law that allows a board to discuss topics in private, and there are 10 reasons to go into executive session, and they're very specific.
Right.
And it's you have to comply with those 10 rules, and even when you're going into executive session, you can't you have to specify which reason it is.
Right, and stay on that reason.
Right.
I mean, it has to be that reason alone. You can't say, "Oh, while we're here, we have to do this." You've seen it before, because we've seen it. In fact, there was one time where they came out of executive session, but they didn't come out appropriately, and they went into another one. So you have to, if you want to have 2 subsequent executive sessions, technically you've got to come out back into open and then go back into executive session. You can close out everything right out of an executive session, but you have to make that known, which I think they did that night. That wasn't the complaint anyhow. That didn't really matter. So my point was on that one, and then they said, what happened on September 12th was not a breach of any sort of open meeting law violation. Now, I'll briefly go over that one. That was the one where Miskowski decided to go into an open session about the complaint, and I would really encourage you to watch that video, September 12th. During that video, it turned into would you say attack? Or at least a critical assessment of one's character towards one particular person on the board. And Mr. Soto. He became the brunt of much of her discourse.
Right.
For right or for wrong, and I'm not saying one way or the other.
Right. So what started as an executive session about the administrative assistant, the chair said the only reason he's having this is because she wanted to have it.
Right.
Well, she doesn't get the choice on an executive session.
Right. She gets the choice of having it open.
Right.
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 Or having it closed. And she decided to have it open. So the executive said, but they even said there wasn't enough evidence to have an executive session. They didn't know why they were doing it.
Right. Because Mr. Soto wanted it against her. But then it didn't sound like he knew that it was going to happen that night.
Right. Right. And then so there was the argument where the chair and the vice chair said, "Oh, we didn't even think that this warranted an executive session."
Right.
And yet but then they voted for it anyway.
Right.
Which was, if you don't think it is and you're the chair, don't do it. You know what I mean?
Or a member.
Or
no.
Say something. Say, you know what? I don't think we should do this. We should try to do something in an HR capacity outside of that. But anyhow, they let it go and they let the discourse go. And Miskowski, she had some pent up hostility.
Oh yeah,
and
again, rightfully so.
And rightfully so, justifiably so. And that hostility was a lot of places, but focused a little bit on Mr. Soto, who I think kind of opened up this Pandora's box.
Yes.
And so as soon as it became a character assessment or evaluation of personal character of another town employee, Mr. Soto, they should have said, stop. This is now, he deserves an executive session if we're going to be doing this. And they didn't do that. And they let that go on for, I can't remember how many minutes I knew before. It was like, I don't know, it seemed like an eternity. It
seemed like
a long time. But anyways, they let that go. And I honestly think that he should be irate. I would be irate if they let that go. That is something that should have been an executive session for him. And those guys could have all just discussed it behind closed doors, as it should have been done. The HR dropped the ball on this one, terribly so. And I know
the HR for the
HR for the town. Funny you should ask. The people that put in that personnel policy from the hospital, whatever. Personnel.
City of Springfield.
Oh well, no,
not that one either.
So
the Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen is the HR. Is HR basically, and so my problem with that one. So I even cited my open meeting violation was that they went outside of what they did on the September 12th one. That was easy. The 11th one was more of an omission of an executive session that they should have been able to do. And I think he has a lawsuit against the town.
If he wanted.
My opinion. That he could, for defamation or for whatever, some HR worker related support.
Yeah,
he could definitely do
hostile environment.
Absolutely. So watch the January 30th minute, like 40 minutes into it. It's the last thing they talk about. Because they say, nope, there was no violation because we did all that like we just mentioned to. And so they voted to send a response because they have to vote to send a response to the person issuing the complaint of the violation. And so they voted on giving a response. Now, I don't know if they all read the response or if they just voted on sending something and you guys decide what it was. Because the response that I got says that there was a violation, and they admitted it was a violation. And I didn't make a copy of it to put on this. I do have it. I'm not going to go through it right now, but I can show it to anybody who wants to ask.
We'll
me
get
for
it next time.
So I have. It says there was an open meeting violation by one member of the board, and he has been given the open meeting law guidelines, and he has since been given those guidelines. Okay, so that's how they resolved it amongst themselves. They didn't admit that they made a mistake. They didn't admit they could have done it better. Looking back, they apologized. I didn't get any of that. They just said, Mr. Soto basically made a mistake and opened his mouth too much, wouldn't listen, and we've since given him the piece of paper so he can read the rules. If they didn't all have that piece of paper before now, after all these open meeting violation discussions, then I don't know what's going on. I mean, that would be a huge mistake. They should almost have them memorized by now. You know, not necessarily. You would think. So what they said in the meeting, what they said on tape, and what's going to be reflected in the minutes, well, there'll be nothing in the minutes, I'm sure. But they're just going to vote on a response. The vote on the response that they all seem to be voting on, that they discussed at the meeting, was that there was no violation. The response that I got that went to the Attorney General was that there was a violation. So, again.
And next time there's an open meeting violation, they'll say that none of them have ever amounted to anything.
Right.
Which again is false.
So anyhow, it just, that kind of stuff, it just rubs me the wrong way.
Yep.
Open meeting violations. The trouble with it is that it has no bite. We already talked to the Attorney General's office, and the reality is, they could just say, all right, we pointed out there was a violation, you know, try not to do that again. So the expectation is that a board would say, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I won't do that again. And instead, you get, there was no violation, whatever, there was no violation, we can just do the same thing next time, or we'll just skirt the system by not put revisions out and whatever. I mean, what we're seeing is there's no evolution of this board. There is no growth to what I'm seeing in this board at all.
Except for regression.
Right.
Evolution.
Yeah, so
regression is a
devolution.
Form of evolution.
Devolution, right? like Devo.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Back in the 80s.
Yeah. Got our red hats.
Devo, yeah. For you people that are too young, just look it up. All right. So I think that's all I had on that one.
I think the headliner of tonight's show is definitely the meeting from last night.
Oh, can I do one more thing? Just one more thing. So Deb Fagerstrom, the town clerk, was here requesting support for budget requests and whatnot. I find that extremely odd in my book. I mean, it's good to get support, but that is an elected position with their own financial, basically their own finances. And so does she need, I mean, I guess she wants a little bit of support because she has to go to FinCom. She has to go to town meeting to get it ratified or passed or whatnot. So the board, to me, this just gives them a sense of power that they don't have. I mean, I don't know if they really realize that they don't really have a say. They could say no, and she could still go and get it. And I would advise her to get her ducks in a row, present it, and ask for it, and stay away from the board. But that's anyhow, go ahead. So what else we have? That was it. I put the faces on there a little bit, but all right. So we'll go back to that. All right, I'm gonna try that. Oh, we got a little one over there.
Hey,
let's turn that just a little bit. We turn it. Yeah, perfect. All right, cool. All right,
we need to get those red lights to show which one.
This doesn't have good lighting, so there's a lot of shadow, and I literally ran into this room to get it done, so I apologize for that. But anyway, so last
night's meeting, I happened to be speaking to a select board member earlier in the day and found out that Sheriff Coachy was coming in for a public information hearing or session at the Hitchcock that night. And which I found very odd. But for whatever reason, we did have, that's what happened. The powers that be did not want to have this publicized, which made it so that not many people were able to show up. I posted on Facebook, we finally got some people to, or we were able to get people to attend.
Yeah,
About,
again, like
I
we
think
alluded to, I honestly, half the people that, at least 5 of the people that were there, only knew about it because of that Facebook post.
Right, at least.
Right.
Coming from the sheriff's office, there were probably an equal amount of sheriff's office personnel there.
Yep.
And they had a very good turnout, and I think they were expecting a good community conversation.
Right.
And to cut to the chase, I went there, thinking that it was going to be a repeat of the first one, where
Right.
it was kind of, it felt strong-armed.
It was.
And like they were going to come in and take over. And as I think most people know, I'm very pro Brimfield Police Department, and I still don't want to do anything without their blessing. I would hate to move forward with anything without their blessing.
Right.
But the story that was told by Sheriff Kochi was much different.
Much different.
Much
Yeah.
more cohesive partnership.
Mm-hmm.
We want to work together, and there's going to be the detractors, who say that's good politician speak, and you may be right. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Right.
But I think that what he presented last night was much more in line with what Brimfield might be comfortable with.
Right. I mean, a couple of things that they did point out, even just going back to the notification, they put in something in a newspaper. Okay. Well, I honestly don't read newspapers that, like, literally the newspaper that often, and so I think I'm sure they sent it to the town, and I'm sure they sent it. I would think that they sent it to the police chief. They did mention that they talked to the police chief.
I believe they said that they did send it to the chief.
Yeah,
and the town.
And it would make sense. And the town. And I know we know Mr. Adams had
right,
because he posted it right after you posted yours. So somebody had this information.
And I hate to think that there's misinformation out there, but for him to have posted the flyer 15 minutes after I posted what I found out,
right, which is like an hour and a half before the meeting or whatever.
Yeah, it might have been 4 hours before, but your first post, for that flyer to have just been sent to the select board member 15 minutes after I posted it,
right,
just seemed very coincidental.
It's ridiculous. No, there's no way that sheriff's department didn't send it to the administration of the select board. There's just no way. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. They would. That's who they have to talk to, in town. And so for me, there was notification. It just wasn't put out there.
Right.
And so they learned a lesson. I mean, there's no doubt they learned a lesson. They're going to get a lot more.
They meaning the sheriff's office.
The sheriff's department, yeah. I mean, they will. I think they'll notify. I think they'll get on social media, and I think they'll notify again and again and again. Is what I think they'll try to do.
There were several of us that they gave cards to that we'll reach out and we will post it where we can.
Yeah, we'll make it so that
right. And again, this isn't an endorsement of the sheriffs, but it's good, sound, local governance. Right. I don't know, community matters to us.
Right. People should listen. And the first meeting, I agree. It was, and they readily agreed too, that it was not set up appropriately. Like, the goal of the meeting and the goal of the information was asked of them was different than what we needed, what the town was expecting. They got, what can we do? They were asked basically, what can you do to replace the police department? I mean, not in those words, but figuratively, that's what they were trying. That's what they were asked.
And that's our opinion, I think.
I think it is our
Yeah.
opinion.
Reading between the lines of what we heard.
And the way they came in and said, "Oh yeah, we'll keep your officers, but we can do this and this and this." And basically, they were saying, "Well, we could replace all of that."
Right.
And I think it was a little over the top, and I don't think that they realized that wasn't what people in the town wanted. So this particular visit was much different. It was basically, we understand the plight of the small rural part-time police departments, and maybe we'll go expand a little bit on that, because I think it's important to this post-commission C, or C, whatever, the post-C police reform that is mandated out there will have a dramatic effect on small town part-time police departments. There's absolutely no doubt that that's going to come. There's going to be an effect, and that's going to be huge.
And that legislation, again, it's something that was designed and written inside of the 128 belt.
Right.
Right. Every police department there is full time. You're all going to get certified. Most of them were certified anyway.
Right.
There isn't a whole lot of change for a full time for Springfield. There's some added education. There's now a board that will evaluate any police brutality or stuff like that,
behaviors,
and they can it's an independent board that will now decide the future of an officer that has bad behavior. Right. So there's some good things that were put into it for a full-time organization.
Right.
But for the smaller part-time departments,
it's a lot.
It's a lot. And that's all coupled with for our organization, for Brimfield, we have a lot of retired officers. One of the other things that happened with Post C is they took some of the police immunity away. So something like if a 911 call comes in and there is there's a domestic assault, a domestic call, the police officer gets to the house and kicks in the door, finds out it's the wrong house, wrong address, something like that. He could be liable for that door, and
right.
So there's, and that's just a small
right.
Thing, but
right.
but it's in the past.
Sure.
If a police officer was acting on his best judgment to get somewhere,
mm-hmm.
They know that there could be mistakes, and there's always been, an area where if there was an assault, if there's something that the police did completely wrong, there's no immunity there.
Right.
But if you're working in the best interest of public safety, you were usually covered by some immunity. You lost a portion of that with this Post C.
Right.
So a lot of our part-time, very retired and well-respected officers, they looked at this and said, it's not worth it to me to potentially lose my retirement.
Right.
And not only ours, and we didn't lose a lot of employees that way, but throughout the Commonwealth,
they did, yeah.
Boston lost huge amounts to that.
Right.
Springfield lost huge amounts, and now all those big organizations that have those guys that just walked away are now picking up whoever they can get.
Right.
One thing that the sheriff said last night was
mm-hmm.
that Boston Police has, just anybody and everybody who wants to apply who has certification, come on over.
Yeah, so what can happen if you think about it, let me say Brimfield, Wales, Holland, and maybe Palmer. Say somebody has a part-time position in Palmer and they want to give 4 hours, 6 hours here to the other small communities. That person still needs to be trained as a full-time police officer no matter what, right? So who pays for that? It's expensive. It's time, and you have to take it's like, what do you say, 2,400 hours or something for training.
Right.
It's huge, and so you have to take time out from your regular job or whatever.
Well, it's 26 weeks in the academy.
26 20, yeah, but I
26
think
weeks,
there was
and then
also
there's 2,400 hours over the next
overtime
5
that you have to
years.
keep on doing. Okay, yeah. So to maintain your credentials. All right. So 26 weeks, that's half a year. I mean, that's a long time. And so not a lot of people have the time to say, oh, I'll do that and not work. Or if they were to do that, let's assume that the town, who's going to pay for it? These are going to be expensive. Let's assume that they do pay for it, that the towns pitch in and they say, okay, well, we'll do our 30%, you do your 30%, and they'll do 60%, whatever. Let's say the towns do that and the person gets certified. Well, now they're certified to be on any police department. Now if there's an opening in Springfield or Boston or down the Cape
Worcester,
at a
Sturbridge.
full-time place
Yeah.
that pays a lot more, they can just up and go, and so now you got to find somebody else to fill in. So the plight of the small rural part-time police department is real. I mean, there is a danger to it. And so what was interesting is the need for training also goes to all the corrections officers, all the sheriff's people. He's got 240 people he's got to bring up and have certified, just like state police, Boston police, everybody else. So they've got to have certain amounts of time on patrol, certain amounts of time in community service, certain amounts of time in all the different facets of on-the-job training, if you will. So now, when you listen to them on the other side of the table, what they're saying is, well, why we could get our guys to get their training as well as service to the community by, if you guys need somebody on a Sunday, somebody calls in sick, you guys need patrol, we'll come in, we'll send a guy over to patrol. And it also at least it seemed like he was saying that it would be the same people or persons each time to try to get that continuity with the town. I thought that was really good. I didn't expect that. I thought it was going to be a rotation, and I'm still not sure, but that would be a help.
But that's something. So that was something that I had asked him, and asked him a couple of times before he said that he would bring the same guys.
Right.
And this is where, I found it very disrespectful that there was nobody else, no selectman there except Mr. Soto, who showed up late, even any of the police department. And I heard they wanted to actually keep it quiet, which I don't quite understand. They would have rather had nobody show up, which would have, in my opinion, which is most important to this board, made Mr. Soto look bad, in front of the sheriff.
Right.
And it would have also, kind of told the sheriff that, we don't want him.
Disinterested, yeah.
The problem with that is, as he said in the first meeting, which is a tough line, he doesn't need our permission.
Right.
He would like it. So, if he doesn't need our permission, but he'd like it, let's work with him and see what can happen.
Right.
Let's try to put our, needs first.
Right.
And so I did press him a little bit, and he said that he would, make sure that there were the same 5 guys here all the time. We wouldn't get the revolving door.
Right.
That might happen in a Wales or a Holland that are more, standoffish. And again, if the Brimfield Police Department say, we don't want them in our town, I'm going to stand behind the Brimfield Police Department.
Yeah. Yep.
I might be upset,
Right.
because I do think that if the offer is legitimate, that he would like to...
Play when you're talking. Go ahead. No.
This only happens when I'm talking.
Yeah,
You realize that?
It does.
I
I can't think and click. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm the one who looks. So I. Now I feel
The legitimacy of having the same.
Yeah. So if we can, if he's going to be here anyway, I think we should work on how to make that happen.
Right.
If, as he said last night, he would be willing to take shifts that we can't fill.
Right.
You know, if that's the starting point, I don't see a
Right.
problem with that.
Yep. I mean, I 100% agree, and I do, and unfortunately, this wasn't videoed last night, but
Which again was a shame, and they did that purposely.
right.
You know, it was a town
It could have been
event.
It could have been videoed. I mean, it should have been videoed, and maybe I mean, had it not been just hours, I could have predicted a day. We could have done it, I suppose. But the reality is, we shouldn't have to do it. That should be a town
Right.
sponsored thing for the edification of the residents. One of the things I got out of it was that nobody likes to hear, oh, we're going to have a partnership, but we don't really need a partnership because we can come in and just do it if we have to do it. And I straight up told him that it's not the way to negotiate. All right. But what is real, and again, I don't really have I don't have a dog in this fight, quite honestly. I mean, I would do whatever the police department wants to do, and I do want to listen to them, because the reality is, we might not have a decision to make here.
Right.
Because if he needs to get 250, 240 police officers time on the streets, he's going to get those people time on the streets. And the way where to do it? Well, he's already got them in Chicopee, Springfield. What else was he? Holyoke, West Spring. So he's got them planted. He's looking to try to make it so that he can get all his guys out there and get them experience. I don't blame him. I think that's what a leader has to do. We have two choices. We either put our head in the sand and say, no, no, no.
Which is what this board is very good at doing.
And then it happens 2 years down the road and everybody says, oh my God, I couldn't believe this happened. You know, now we have to have them in here. Or we have a police department that talks to them. It figures out maybe filling in a shift a little bit won't be the worst thing in the world. And we have control over how that integration happens and at what pace.
Right.
And that's huge. It's huge, I think, to be, well, one, we would be one of the first small rural towns to do it. You know, without having they're a task force in Springfield. They're not doing this in Springfield. They're not policing like they would do in our neighborhood. So I think it's interesting. I think it's worth discussing.
Exploring.
It has to be explored, because otherwise I got a feeling the mandate's over here. He's going to do it.
Yeah.
Because he can and he has to. He's got to get these guys trained. And it's easy to do it a little, I don't know. It's just one of the easy ways of doing it.
Yeah. The scary part for me is that, you know, we are going to be the first in the state to do this. And you know, we have the chance to actually make this successful with the sheriff, or make it what
Right.
this board and you know, Brimfield is unfortunately in the past year or two very good at, which is messing everything up.
Right.
You know, and I think that opportunity to be a model for how we can reintegrate sheriff's departments with local PDs, you know, and augment and not take over.
Right.
And, you know, work within the confines of the local needs.
Right.
You know?
I think the chief needs to talk, and I think he needs to talk with the sheriff's department by himself. Because I think that there are nuances of policing that the select board does not know. And
It's nuances of pretty much
and
everything.
the reality is, right, the reality is they will only muddy the water. And so I think if the police chief gets involved, protects his men and women on the force, and does right by them,
Yes.
and does everything right by them and for the town, then nobody could say that he's in the wrong. Nobody.
Right.
Right?
And
yeah.
And our new Chief Beaudry, is a very smart guy.
Right.
Is you know, has been involved in Brimfield and other police organizations for a long time.
Right.
You know, he understands what what every other chief is looking at as, Sheriff Cochee is coming into Brimfield.
Right.
And he could make this a good model, I think. And there are things in the police world that I don't understand.
Right. And if the discussions ended up saying, well, that's not what you said yesterday, well, then you get, hey, wait a minute, this is wrong, and you said, but I think it would be wrong not to enter into some sort of discussion, and because it's the only way you have any control. It's the only way the chief of the police is going to have any semblance of control, that rather than look like he's getting pushed around. And I don't want to offend the sheriff, but I don't want him to think that he can just come in and say, we're going to do it. That's not going to look good for either one.
Right.
Either one. So he's got to get buy-in, and honestly, he needs to soften the way to get buy-in. He needs to kind of rethink the way he delivers the message.
And
I thought he did last night.
He did last night.
At least
for sure.
He started. He began that quest.
Yeah, and it is going to be an uphill battle because of how he started, which I don't think was his fault. I think that he was told how to come in here and what to sell the community, and that was way off base.
Right. He was selling us oranges and we needed apples. I mean, he came in with something totally wrong as far as the package that he was delivering, and it went over like a lead balloon.
Right.
And then that got out, and now everybody's like, keep them out. But I don't think people understand what is happening to small town police departments, and I really would encourage them to read through this reform bill or read articles about it and how it's going to affect the small town.
Right. Yeah.
Get educated.
And I really do hope that we can put a real community session together.
Right.
Once the town hall is back open.
Right.
Have a lot of participation, have a lot of question and answer.
Right.
Have our town leaders in attendance.
I don't care.
Yeah, well, it's the right thing to do.
Right.
If
I agree, somebody should be there.
Yeah, if an elected official with the position of county sheriff shows up for a public information meeting, we should have had some of our town leaders here.
Right.
At minimum.
Agree.
More than Selectman Soto.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yep.
And if we can have that meeting and it can go over like it did last night, I don't think too many people last night left thinking that it would be a bad idea.
Right. Right. So I thought it was interesting when he's, from an elected official's standpoint, when he has these public meetings, what he was saying, the people who show up are either the people that are gung-ho for it, have concerns about it, or are totally against it, right? There are people that don't care, don't show up. Some of the people that are gung-ho for it don't show up because they have no questions. So it's the people that have concerns, and the people he's got to convince tend to be the ones that show up to a lot of these, which I thought was an interesting take from a political standpoint for these public discussions. And he's had a lot of them, and he's about to have more, I guess, when he goes into other rural towns about this matter. We may have a chance to educate him on just how to deliver the message as well, quite honestly. Especially to a small town who would almost rather not have any part of the influence from the state, minimum that we can. We want to be secluded. We want to stay a small town. We want local control. We don't want state control. And I get it, but I think that die is cast from this reform bill, and I think it's going to have to change.
And support, especially if we don't have the ability to fill a shift.
Right.
We voted 3 years ago to do 24/7 coverage.
Right.
The town wants coverage.
Right. And for I forget what it was, like 18 months after that reform bill went in, they actually had a means of a part-time officer getting that bridge certificate to get educated to the level of a certificate to kind of get things going. But that stops.
No.
I think that stopped already.
No. So it's a 3-year process there are so many part-time officers in the state that, you know, and it would just overwhelm the academies.
Right, but the part-time academy. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So they actually split it. You know, any last name A through F had to get their certificate, their full-time certificate, or their bridge certificate by, I think, July 1st.
Right. Okay.
And now it's, you know, the next third of the alphabet
Gotcha.
is responsible for doing it now, and that also, you know, in the defense, which I also don't do very often of Post C. They did think enough of the part-time officers to know that, or part-time departments, that, you know, Brimfield couldn't afford to send all of our part-time officers to the Bridge Academy in 1 year.
Right.
You know, so spreading it out through 3 years also enables us to keep our part-time guys.
Right.
You know, and
Until they get certified and find another job.
ouch.
I mean, most of the good thing about the guys that we have, they're generally local. A lot of times they're retired, you know, coming back to it, and they want, and for the part-time nature of it, they like the town. They do it because of the area. They're not doing it
Right.
They're not doing it for the money. Certainly not in Brimfield. They're doing it because they like it. They like the job. It's in their blood, and all the credit goes to them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm also just following along,
chat, yeah.
and there aren't any questions.
Oh, good. That means we are clear.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud.
So the other thing that the other big meeting was the first meeting of the Building Committee 2.0.
Sweet.
Yes, and I was able to go to most of that. It could still be going on for all I know. It was at 5:00 tonight, so I just ran in here.
Is that a meeting that's posted?
Yes.
Okay, so you can subscribe to the agenda and things like that? Is that on like that?
I think so.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
have to check on that.
Yeah. The interesting part of this Building Committee 2.0 was when I went in, I came in a couple minutes late, but George had started the meeting. And
Is he on the committee?
he is not on the committee, but he started it and ran the motions to, you know, create or to appoint a chair, which Mike Egan, who's been involved in, you know, with this board in particular, this select board on building matters, he became the chair. But instead of just turning it over at that point to the new chair, George continued with the agenda to accept motions for the vice chair, the secretary, and the admin. And once all those were done, then George handed the gavel over, which...
That's not right.
No.
There's nothing about that that's correct.
No.
Nothing.
And it was an interesting meeting. It's, you know, a lot of them, to my knowledge, have not been on any other committees. You know, we've got Mike Egan, which I don't think was on any committees.
No.
Stephen Pfeiffer, who's
Been on
many.
Mm-hmm.
Clea Ververitis. I don't think, to my knowledge, she's never been on. Well, she's been on. No, she's never been on any
I don't
town
think
committee
so.
here in Brimfield.
I don't think so.
Deb Fagerstrom is on the committee,
Right.
and I don't think she's. Well, she was on the. She's the only member of Building Committee 1.0 that.
Didn't they say something about her being a non-voting member?
No, that's Teresa.
Oh, Teresa. So
Yes.
she's okay. So she was in attendance too.
Right.
She's who's taking the minute? Who's taking all their information down?
So the secretary. So this was another. I don't quite get all these positions.
Sure.
There was the chairman,
That
Mike
makes
Egan.
sense. Yep.
Vice chair was originally Deb Fagerstrom, and then she didn't really want it.
Okay.
But after the vote, Tim there's a Tim on the board as well. He was the
Okay.
final member.
Okay.
He's been in town for 2 years. I don't believe he's been on any board.
Yeah. That's good.
He turned and said, do you really want to be vice chair? And Deb said, no, not really. And he says, well, I'll be vice chair. And then someone else made another motion to appoint him as vice chair without removing. And then actually
Yeah.
Deb amended the motion to make
be
him, even though that motion was already voted on and approved
Yeah.
and passed. So I'm not sure that was all done correctly, but
It
you know,
went, yeah,
it went.
it went.
So Ms. Ververitis is the secretary and Deb is the admin. So Deb was taking the minutes, but then there was discussion that Ms. Ververitis would end up taking the minutes after this meeting. So, and now they're going back to it. It was an interesting discussion. It's very apparent that that none of them. Oh, and Sue was also present. So we had Sue Collins.
Oh. Okay. All right.
My most amusing part of it was that at one point someone asked if anybody had been to the Munson town hall that just got redone, and they should look at that, and they wondered if there was anybody that knew about the project.
Did you raise your hand? You did.
I know someone. So for those not in the know, our former co-chair, Chief Kuss,
Right.
was on the Munson Town Hall building committee, and was big on that. His name is in the lobby of that building.
That's funny.
So, there's your time for wanting to. Well, the reason for having Chief Kuss there was because the model that was brought up today
Right.
was helped
He
by
worked
him.
on it.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of inside information about it, no doubt. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So I guess did they say when the next meeting was?
I had to leave before it was over.
Oh yeah, that's true. Broadcasting.
Yes.
It's a tough.
I'm here for you.
I put off my life for this.
Yeah. What kind of life do I have if it's building
sad.
committee?
It's sad, but
Yeah.
so that is interesting. So now it's in the works. So now I guess we'll have to see. One, hopefully they'll get a website page.
Right.
Which I think they
They
should
do. They already do.
All right, so they should be able to put their
Agendas and
agenda on
minutes.
that, and they should.
They better have their minutes.
They better have their minutes, and so hopefully we'll be able to subscribe to that as well. That should be a pretty easy thing to do. I did notice on when I was looking for some of the agenda of the select board, I've noticed that we still haven't changed Board of Selectmen
Yeah.
on a lot of places on our website, and I brought it up literally 6 months ago. Just because I looked, I said, we probably ought to change that because legally that's not the name anymore. I don't think it really matters, to be quite honest, but they made a point of it at the town meeting, and so every time I was looking for an agenda and going to a different place, I found Board of Selectmen, Board of Selectmen, Board of Selectmen, and so it is interesting how many places
Oh yeah.
there are, and it's how redundant things are a little bit. It's not easy to find things, but anyhow, like sometimes finding the agenda, you have to go to calendar. It's not always on the calendar. It's not the right click. You have to go to sometimes
Yeah.
it's a little bit. So it is good to be able to subscribe. So
Yeah.
I would advise that.
I just saw that it's not on eSubscribe yet,
Okay.
so you have to
Well.
know when to go there and get it. I will also say, just in the event that any of the co-chairs of the old building committee were there or are listening to us now, they are supposedly going to ask you for some documents or closeout status, whatever. And if that happens, I would suggest that you require one of the select board members who have ignored all your calls over the last 6 months to make that request of you. if you choose to.
Why? Yeah.
If you want to subject yourself to talking to them again.
Yeah, I just give them boxes of paper.
Yeah. So, but the building committee are basically planning on starting from scratch again, which I think is a huge mistake. You know, I understand why they want to do it, but at the same time,
none of them have a background. They got to get up to snuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
that's the problem.
That was obvious.
It's gonna take a year of just getting. Honestly, if you think of all the people you just mentioned, well, Steve Pfeiffer, the exception.
Knows building.
And Mr. Egan has been to a few meetings because I know he's come up when there was public access. He would come up to the microphone and say, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Because I remember him coming up when there was public access. So he, of all people, knows the value of public access. So one of the things that this committee should at least think about is asking the audience if there's anybody there that knows something that they're talking about, and then let them talk, because there may be some historic value of, and I'm not talking about somebody saying, oh, I remember when I grew up, moving cows across the pasture. I don't want that, but having somebody say, we looked into that, and this is why the engineering report said no, and hopefully that will happen.
Yeah, we were able to do that a little bit.
Yeah.
They made a motion to draft an RFP for architectural engineering plans when they don't know what buildings they want to keep and tear down. And
I'd love to be the architect on that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, sure. So how much do you have?
Yeah.
Because I can make it as encompassing as you want it to be.
So I ended up raising my hand and recognized and said that, before you do an architect engineer, and they were saying that we want to get the draft, but we're not going to send it out until we're ready.
Yeah.
Which seems like, drafting the cart before the horse. But if that's what they wanted to do, and they were okay with just having a draft sit in a box for a year or two, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I said that, probably the more important aspect would be getting, drafting an RFP for an OPM. And the OPM, the outside project manager,
right,
or the owner's project manager, I'm sorry. That would be important. And once you get that person on the payroll, they will have RFPs. They'll have thousands of them for architects and engineers.
They have the templates.
Oh,
you can just fill it in with what you need.
Yeah. So, and they accepted that. Although Mr. Adams, select board member Adams,
as a resident, representing the. I wonder what he was at that meeting.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, he went to the Mass Municipal Association meeting in Boston a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
And he met a company that does everything soup to nuts. And they would become the OPM, they would be the architect, they would be the design build, and do all the closeouts. And he thought something like that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the first thing I would do is I would ask previous OPM or an engineer or like there are a number of people from the other committee. I would say, how do you think this would work? Because I'm not sure. I mean, it's like going to Walmart. You did a lot of stuff there,
So, and again,
is that the best way? I'm not sure.
The senior center director, Eva Pitzinger, was there. And she was actually able to speak at that point and kind of say, you kind of want your OPM to be outside.
Yeah, working for you.
OPM is the owner's project manager. They're going to go toe-to-toe with the company's project manager on anything that,
you want them in your corner. You want them on your side, if you will.
We're paying them to protect us.
Your best interest.
If you hire the OPM from the same company that's doing the work,
There's
know,
a slight conflict of interest.
yeah.
But obviously he can do it because it's a company that can do it. So
Mr. Adams, talked to a company
Yep.
who said that they can do it, and there are other companies just like that at MMA.
Right.
And I'm being facetious because I actually worked for a company that did all that.
That did all that.
And they do it, but it's, even internally within the company, they'll tell you, we don't like doing it because...
Yeah, too many things can get
Yeah.
crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a conflict of interest.
It's a little bit.
If I see Paul doing, wiring something that's not to code, but he covers it up quickly, do I tell on him?
Right.
Which will then make my company's profits less?
Your own company gets screwed, right?
So I'm in a difficult position there, which,
Right.
Seems pretty obvious to me, but...
It does. Yeah, it's interesting.
You caught on.
Obviously...
You're a doctor, though.
Yeah, well, I play one on TV. I think you've got to... The other thing is, it's one company. Maybe you get references. Maybe you get, who else has used them? How did it work? Why did it work that well? But I would definitely ask around, and I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. In my opinion, that's not the way to go. But we had a lot of people with really a lot of good experience to tap into that. Honestly, from the building committee 1.0, that would probably be, once they kind of get over the, I think they'll probably have information that they would be able to share. And I think they would. I think they would.
Yep.
As slighted as they might feel.
Yeah, considering how badly the select board treated them.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
But
it will. It'll take a month of Sundays to kind of get up to snuff, to get to the point where every one of those 8 to 15, 11, depending on how it ended, members of that last time, they could all talk the talk.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing that
we lost huge.
Yeah. When you think about how much information Eva has, from being at those meetings, that's so far beyond, certainly what I know about it at all. It's just from being there, you just absorb it all in, and you learn and you learn and you learn. But
Eva's actually quite the contractor.
Is she?
Oh yeah. You should ask her about falling through the floors that she's renovating.
He set me up. Don't listen. I'm not listening to him.
Seriously?
I'm not listening to him.
She's done it all.
All right, what else we got? Oh, I did want to mention, I did see on Facebook, and I didn't have, again, I was having some IT things. The baseball signups are now for the Brimfield Rec. They've been putting a lot of stuff on Facebook, so I would encourage everybody to get involved with the Brimfield Rec Committee. If you, even if you don't have kids, just get involved. It's really a fun thing to do. It's a good way to meet members of the community, and the sign-ups happen so far in advance. Certainly, if it's another cold, snowy day, you don't think about baseball, but baseball is right around the corner. Spring's right around the corner, and now's the time to get those sign-ups done.
Yep. And the Wreaths Across America
Saturday.
retirement is this Saturday. The wreath retirement ceremony is this Saturday, I believe, at 11.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
11 o'clock. And I don't remember if there's anything else at this point.
Yeah.
But
so now on the personal note, I'll just say that Dr. McCarthy's veterinary clinic, you just celebrated your 10-year.
10 year? Yep.
That's awesome.
10 years we've been here. Yeah. It's,
been where?
In Sturbridge.
Oh, okay.
There, but whatever. But yeah, it's been crazy actually. It's been a roller coaster ride. It's been great. It's been great.
I've had to use you a few too many times for my liking.
It does.
But
it's one of those things. Yeah, well, we're glad to be here and offer that service, and I think it's been a growing. I think the mentality of the clientele coming in, and it's just a different world of veterinary medicine right now after COVID. It's just very intense, and the people that we have working here are just great, and so I'm really happy with the crew that we've got.
Yep,
it's impressive.
Yeah,
Congratulations. Just a lot of knowledge they have. You surround yourself with good people, and then you makes you look good.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we're very proud of it. Sheila's been a huge developer of that. Again, you hire good people, you get good people. The technicians are great, the doctors are great, and we try to become community oriented and all that. Yeah, we're really happy.
Nice. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right.
All right. I think that's all we had for today, right?
I think so.
We hit most of the points. I'm sure as soon as we sign off, it'll be we'll have something else to say or think about. But we'll be back next week, and we're going to continue to try to hopefully get a little bit of better tech squared away by next week. All right. So
we may be in yet another location, undisclosed.
Yeah, undisclosed, because we just got to keep hopping around. You got to stay ahead, man.
That's right.
It's like the underground. So
Yeah.
I guess I only have one more thing to say, and that would be
Dismiss children.
okay. So we're back, and anyways, all right. I want to see if I can get this to work out. So anyhow, we'll see y'all later, and
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
week.